technical precision, I think, is one of the most complicated mechanic in P5X. But in this video, I'll be trying my best to explain what is it and how it works. So I'll be referring to Luther.net's article or guide on technical precision because they've written this really well. So you want to check it out, I'll leave the link in the description and you can read it yourself. I won't be reading word for word, but I'll just explain it as easily understandable as possible. So technical precision is basically a buff to technicals. And technicals activate when you use a skill on opponents that have elemental elements. So burn, windswept, shock, freeze. These are the main four. And not every skill can inflict technical. You need to read the character's kit to know if they can inflict technicals. So let's say if we go to Firewind for example, like for example, you can say that when evolve, deal heavy damage and activate fire technical. It needs to say technical for it to activate. So let's say if we look at the skill 2 has no technical written on it, which means that it cannot activate technical. Or if you go to another character for example, if you go to like first girl mod, nothing in the kit says that she can activate technical, so she cannot activate technical. Or if you go to Matoi for example, Matoi will also say technical. You can see that even the skill 2 can activate ice technical. Her highlight can activate ice technical. So if it says there it can activate technical, then it can activate technical. It doesn't say, then it most likely cannot. So like I already mentioned, technicals activate when you use skill on elemental elements. So depending on what type of skill you use on what type of elemental element, you get different effects. So for example, if you use a fire skill on burn, you increase your skill damage by 2%. If you use ice on burn, you get this extra effect which increases fire ice damage taken by 5% for 2 turns. This has a 50% chance of activating. So ice burn can be either ice skill on burn or burn skill on freeze. So it's, it can be opposite. If it's wind burn, it's gonna be wind skill on burn target or fire skill on windswept targets. And for wind burn, you basically just do DOT. For the purpose of this video, we're gonna mostly talk about fire burn and ice burn because Matoi and Firewind, these are the two main characters that uses technical. There's also one more, this one. Actually no, there's two more. Short circuit is when you use ice skill on shock or electric skill on freeze. Deep freeze is ice on ice. Short circuit will also increase the skill damage, and deep freeze will inflict icebound, which is basically like a perma freeze kind of thing. So the opponent's gonna move. And this isn't really effective against like a lot of bosses, so deep freeze is a bit useless. So what technical precision does is they buff these numbers. So they will buff this 2% skill damage, they will buff this 5% damage taken increase, they will buff this extra DOT. And just one more thing, technical precision I believe doesn't buff Queen's technical, so nuclear damage, I don't think they get buffed by technical precision. So only fire, ice, electric, wind, these four can get buffed. Here comes the more technical math part of technical precision because there is math involved. Because when you look at like Matoi, she can increase technical precision here 195, there another one here 1186. So these numbers are like the buff to the technical. So the Luther.net says here, at 1000 technical precision, the following effect occurs. You will double the fire burn. Fire burn is again fire on burn target, and you also increase ice burn effect by 50%. So ice burn is ice on burn target or fire move on freeze target. So the double here, 2% double becomes 4% skill damage. Then 50% increase of 5% is 7.5% fire ice damage taken. So that's how technical precision works. So this is a 1000 technical precision. So Matoi can increase a lot more than 1000. So it's like 1300 plus. So it's going to be more than 4% and it's going to be more than 7.5% here. And these numbers are small, right? But the thing is, it works a little bit differently for Firewind and Matoi. Because Firewind and Matoi, they have their own numbers. They can still trigger Fire Burn and Ice Burn, but again, they have their own number and their own numbers are higher. If they have a higher number, it means that doubling the number is going to be even higher. So let's go to Matoi for example. So Matoi skill 3 can activate Cold Flames. And what is Cold Flame? Cold Flame is basically the stronger version of Ice Burn. And Ice Burn is a damage taken increase for fire or ice skill. So you can see that Cold Flames can increase the damage taken by 39% plus 9.8%, so that's 48.8% damage increase. That is not taking into account technical precision. So with technical precision, you can easily increase that by 1.5 times. Okay, like it shows here. So the number here is based on the max skill, Refinescape. So you can see that this number, you times 1.5, you get this number. So that's very high. Minimum regular Ice Burn is only 7.5. You can see the difference is big. Very, very big. So that's why technical precision is very, very useful for technical characters. And why Burn is super essential. Because again, to trigger this Cold Flame, you need to use a fire skill on a frozen target. Or for Matoi's case, it's going to be a ice skill because she's ice on a burn target. So burn is super important to activate this Cold Flame. And not just Cold Flame, the Scout also, because the Scout is the one that gives you technical precision. See this one? It gives you 1186 at level 10. So if you do not have Scout, your skill 3 is going to be weak. Your skill 3 is going to be the 39 plus 9.8. Now we move on to Fire Ring. Fire Ring is very straightforward. So Fire Ring can trigger Fire Burn. Right, you can activate Fire Tank. You can also trigger Ice Burn, but we're not going to talk about that because we talked about it for Matoi already. And Fire Burn is usually 2%, right? But for Fire Ring's case, it's actually 20%. It's increased from 2% to 20%. Then with Technical Precision, you pretty much double this 20% to 40%. I'm not 100% sure if where this 40% lies in the damage calculation, but I assume it's in the damage part of the formula. Okay, you don't have to worry about this damage calculation thing, but just know that it gets amplified. And remember, to activate this Fire Technical, this Fire Burn, you need the target to be burnt. So burn is extremely important for both Matoi and Fire Ring. Because if you don't have burn, literally the entire kit will not work. The technicals will not activate, Fire Burn will not activate, your Scout will not even activate. And if your Scout is not activated, you don't get the technical precision. If you don't get technical precision, you don't buff your Cold Flames from skill 3 and you don't buff this 20% from Fire Ring. So burn, very, very important to activate everything, the kit. And not just that, burn also activates this passive. Technical also activate this passive. So basically, the entire kit revolves around burn. Almost the entire kit. So very, very important. So I hope this video helps you out, because I know technical precision is a very confusing term. Hopefully I did it justice. So yeah, if you guys have any questions or if you still don't understand, feel free to let me know. I'll answer them in the comments. But yeah, thanks for watching.